They thought she was harmless, just another quiet new student who would keep her head down and stay out of trouble. From the moment Aisha walked onto Westfield High, the air seemed to shift. She was one of the very few black girls in the entire school, and that fact alone made her stand out in ways she never wanted. She dressed simply, carried her books neatly, and avoided unnecessary attention, but still the eyes followed her everywhere she went. Some were curious, some judgmental, and some cruel. It didn't take long for whispers to start about her hair, her skin, the way she spoke. At first, Aisha ignored them. She had transferred from a busy, bustling city to this quiet suburban town halfway through the school year, and she was determined to focus on her studies and stay out of drama. What the other students didn't know was that she had been training in martial arts since she was 5 years old. Her father, a former professional martial artist, had raised her with strict discipline and a deep respect for self-control. Every morning before school, while the rest of the neighborhood was still asleep, she practiced cedar punches, kicks, footwork, and breathing exercises. She could disarm someone twice her size in seconds, but her father's golden rule was burned into her mind: only fight when you must, and if you must, end it quickly. That rule had kept her from reacting to the early bullying, but it didn't protect her from the growing cruelty of those who saw her as an easy target. At first, the bullying was subtly whispers when she walked by, snickering when she raised her hand in class, deliberate bumps in the hallway. Then it grew bolder. One boy accidentally spilled juice in her backpack. Someone shoved her books onto the floor in the cafeteria. She would pick them up silently, pretending it didn't matter. But the truth was, every insult and every shove added weight to the storm building inside her. Then came the moment that would change everything. It was lunchtime, and Aisha was sitting by the window, quietly reading a worn paperback. She liked that spot because the sunlight made her feel warmer, safer. But that day, 3 girls approached the led by Kendra, one of the most feared bullies in school. Tall, athletic, and full of arrogance, Kendra was used to everyone stepping aside for her. She stopped in front of Aisha's table, her friends blocking both exits. Without a word, Kendra picked up Aisha's book and tossed it to the floor. "What's the matter, city girl? Too good to talk to us?" she sneered. Aisha said nothing, her eyes still on her lunch. Kendra leaned closer, her voice dripping with mockery. "You think you're better than us?" And then, without warning, she slapped Aisha hard across the cheek. The sound echoed in the cafeteria, and conversations stopped. Dozens of eyes turned toward them. Aisha's cheek burned, and her father's rule screamed in her mind. She stood up slowly, her gaze locked on Kendra's, her voice steady and low. "Don't touch me again." The bullies laughed and walked away, thinking they had won, thinking she was too scared to fight back. They had no idea what they had just started. 2 days later, fate handed them the confrontation they didn't know they were about to lose. After gym class, Aisha stayed behind in the locker room to put away her shoes. The room was quiet except for the hum of the lights, until the door swung open and Kendra and her 2 friends stepped in. They blocked the exit, their faces twisted with cruel amusement. "Look who's all alone," Kendra said. "Let's see how tough you really are." One of the girls moved first, pushing Aisha against the lockers. Kendra stepped forward, raising her hand for another slap. But this time, Aisha was ready. In one smooth motion, she caught Kendra's wrist before it could connect, twisted it sharply behind her back, and forced her to her knees. The other 2 lunged, but Aisha sidestepped one, letting her momentum crash into the lockers, and swept the legs out from under the other with a precise kick. The fight was over in less than 10 seconds. Aisha didn't shout, didn't gloat. She simply looked down at them and said in a calm, steady voice, "I told you not to touch me again." Then she walked out, leaving them stunned on the floor. Word spread like wildfire. Some exaggerated the details, saying she took down 6 people at once. Others doubted it happened at all. But a teacher who had walked in at the end confirmed everything. The bullies were suspended for their actions, and suddenly the girl everyone thought was quiet and harmless was the most talked about person in school. But for Aisha, this wasn't about revenge or becoming a school legend. She had no interest in making people fear her. What she wanted was to make sure no one else had to go through what she did. The following week, She spoke to the principal about starting a self-defense club. She called it the Guardian Circle. At first, only a few students joined it, mostly those who had been bullied before. Sam, a small freshman who had been shoved around since day one. Grace, who had been mocked for her weight. Even a shy boy named Liam, who struggled with a speech disorder, showed up wanting to learn. Aisha taught them not just martial arts techniques, but how to carry themselves with confidence, how to walk into a room without shrinking, how to look someone in the eyes without fear. Week by week, the group grew larger. The culture in the school began to shift. People started standing up for each other. Bullies began thinking twice before targeting someone. And slowly, Aisha noticed something beautiful. Those who had once been silent victims were now walking taller, smiling more, and even stepping in when they saw someone being picked on. By the end of the semester, Aisha was no longer the new girl or the one who fought Kendra. She was a leader, a mentor, and a friend to many. She had turned the moment meant to humiliate her into a movement that inspired others. And while the sting of that first slap had long faded, the lesson it sparked would stay forever. Courage isn't about never being afraid of. It's about standing up when fear tries to control you. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should never underestimate.